Hello everyone, I am Piyush Goyal and I welcome you to Voxcel's YouTube channel. In this video, we will discuss about Cambridge IELTS Book 19 Test 1's Academic Reading Passage 1. So in this video we will see how this passage should be solved, how where your answers are. If you have any doubts on particular questions, I hope you will get clarifications in this video. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So what we should do while solving the reading is that first we should try to read the heading of the paragraph so that we can get an image about the paragraph, like what could we read in this particular paragraph. Maybe the information is not what we thought, but we can have like some sort of an idea about the paragraph, and it will help our brain to like channel its vocabulary, and it will help us to understand it better. So the heading of the paragraph is how tennis rackets have changed. So from the heading we can understand it will be about tennis. It's a sports obviously, and how the tennis rackets have changed over time. Like maybe in the past tennis rackets were different, but now the tennis rackets are like something else. They are using some sort of different techniques to build these kind of rackets. Maybe there were some flaws in the previous versions of the racket and they have rectified them. Okay, so we will read something about that. Maybe we won't, maybe there's something different, but we know what kind of things we're gonna read about. So after that, we do not need to read the entire paragraph. We will go to the first question, straight to the first question. So these are question number 1 to 7, and we know we have to find true, false and not given. So if you haven't watched my videos on the different type of questions, you can watch them also. So let's see how shall we start these questions. So true if the statement agrees with the information, false if the statement contradicts the information, not given if there is no information on this. So what students basically do is, I will just give you sort of an overview of this. What students usually do is this: they match words. So if they find some particular words of the question in the paragraph, they will say it's true. If they don't find those words, they will say it's false. So what about the not given? So that's why they get usually confused between false and not given. But we will see, I will tell you how to solve these questions so that you can mark them correct every time without fail. We will have to verify the information, so it is written even in the question. So if the information agrees, we will say true. If the information contradicts or it is opposite in simpler terms, we will say it is false. And if there is no information on the particular question, we will say not given. Okay, let's begin from question number 1. People had expected Andy Murray to become the world's top tennis player for at least 5 years before 2016. So they were expecting, so this is our locator word, Andy Murray to become the world's top tennis player for at least 5 years, meaning to say, so minimum of 5 years before 2016. So when the answer will be true, if people were expecting him to be the best player or the top, like number 1 player in this particular sports for at least 5 years before 2016, meaning to say from 2011 onwards, they were expecting him to be like the number 1 player. When the information will be false, when they were not expecting him to be the number 1 player like for at least 5 years, maybe they were expecting him like for like last 1 year or something like that, or maybe they were not expecting him to become the top player any, okay, from like even from like 6 months ago or something like that. When the information will be, when our answer will be not given, when there is no mention of expectations, like people weren't expecting anything from him, or when it is not mentioned what their expectation, like they had expectations, they were expecting something from him, but they were not what they were expecting is not given, or something about the year is not mentioned, we will say it is not given. So let's see if something is mentioned here or not. Good. 2016, so we know this is our locator, so this there will be our answer. The British professional tennis player Andy Murray, okay, this is our location of, this is one of our locator words, was ranked as in world's number one. So in 2016 he was ranked world number one. So do not mark true, okay, you will say, or most of students will say, okay, Andy Murray number one 2016 true. No, we do not have information about at least 5 years, okay, or people's expectations. We don't know about that right now. It was incredible. It was an incredible achievement by any standard, made even more remarkable by the fact that he did this during a period considered to be one of the strongest in sports history, competing against the likes of Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic, to name a few. Yet 5 years previously, okay, so yet 5 years previously means at least 5 years ago, he had been regarded as a talented outsider who entered but never won the major tournaments. So what was the expectation? He was regarded as a talented outsider, but people never thought of him much, okay, so, and he had never won any major tournament before 2016, so people even did not think of him much. So they thought that he was a talented outsider, but nothing much than that. So they were not expecting him to become the top tennis player, because they just thought he is a talented tennis player, nothing else. So our answer to this question will be false. Hope it is clear. Moving on to the next question. The change that Andy Murray made to his rackets attracted a lot of attention. So we are gonna focus on the change. So this is about the person who changed. So where he made change to his rackets, and it attracted a lot of attention. So when the answer will be true, the answer will be true when the change, whatever the change is, so we do not have to worry about what kind of change he made to his racket. So if he had made any sort of change, it attracted a lot of attention of people, like people were talking about it. So then we will say it is true. But if it didn't attract any attention, or if it didn't attract a lot of, or in other words, if it attracted little attention, then the answer will be false. When it will be not given, if there is no mention of any change to his racket, then we will say we don't know if he changed his racket or not. Or if there is no mention of how much attention was attracted, there may be mention of some attention, but whether it was a lot or whether it was little, if there is no mention of that particular information, we will say not given. Okay, so we'll see. So the questions of true false is like, it is one after the other, like the answer of second will always be after one. Okay, so we do not have to worry about what was written before. Okay, so moving further, of the changes that account for this transformation was one visible and widely publicized. So widely publicized means a lot of attention, but let's just say in 2011, Murray invited former number one player Evan Lendl onto his coaching team, a valuable addition that had a visible impact on players' playing style. So the change that he made, and it attracted a lot of attention, widely publicized, but the change was not related to racket, but it was related to like a person. Okay, another change. So second change was so subtle. Okay, it was a subtle change as to pass more or less unnoticed. Like many players, Murray has long preferred a racket that consists of two types of string, one for the mains verticals and another for the crosses horizontals. While he continued to use natural string in the crosses, in 2012 he switched to a synthetic string for mains. A small change perhaps, but its importance should not be underestimated. So he changed something in his racket, but the change was so subtle that it went more or less unnoticed. So the noticed change was of a person, but the subtle change was of racket. So the question is saying the change attracted a lot of attention. No, we have read in the paragraph that it went more or less unnoticed. So the answer will be false. Hope it is clear. Third question. Most of the most of the world's top players take a professional racket stringer on tour with them. So we have to find whether most of the world's top player take professional racket stringers on tour with them or not. If most of the players, like majority of the players, take a professional racket stringer on tour with them, then we will say it's true. If there is written like not all but some, then we will say false. Or if the majority of the world's top players take more than one racket stringer, because here in the question it is saying a professional racket stringer, meaning say one. So if they're taking more than one, like 2 or 3, then we will say it's false. And when it will be not given, if there is no mention like whether they're taking racket stringer with them or not, whether if there is no information about whether it is most of the world's player or not. Okay, when we'll say not given. Let's see where the information is. We'll move forward from here. The modification that Murray made is just one of a number of options available to players looking to tweak their rackets in order to improve their games. Touring professionals have their racket customized to the specific needs, says Colin Treplow, a UK-based professional racket stringer. So here our keyword professional racket stringer. It's customized to the specific needs. Okay, it's a highly important part of performance maximization. Consequently, the specific rackets used by the world's elite are not actually readily available to the public. Rather, each racket is individually made to suit the player who uses it. Take the US professional tennis players Mike and Bob Bryan for example. We are very particular with our racket specifications. They say, all our rackets are sent from our manufacturer to Tampa, Florida, where our frames go through a thorough customization process. They explain how they have adjusted not only the racket length but even experimental with different kinds of paint. The racket they use now weigh more than the average model and also have a denser string pattern that is more crosses and mains. So up till here we have not read anything about like whether the most of the world's player take a stringer with them. Okay, so before reading the next paragraph, we will read the next question. Mike and Bob Bryan use the racket that are light in comparison. So we have read about these two players. So that means the information of this question is not given in the paragraph, and we will mark this question as not given. Okay, so we will read this question now. Mike and Bob Bryan uses rackets that are light in comparison to majority of rackets. So when the answer will be true, if their rackets are lighter than the other rackets, and when it will be false, when their rackets are like heavier than other rackets or not lighter than other rackets, or maybe equal in weight than other rackets, then we will say it is false. When it will be not given, when there is no mention whether their rackets are like light, heavy or equal in weight with other rackets. So we have read Mike and Bob Bryan here. So we will read again. Actually I know the answer, but we will read again. Mike and Bob Bryan, for example, we are very particular with our racket specifications. All our rackets are sent from manufacturer to Tampa, Florida, where our frames go through a thorough customization process. They explain how they have adjusted not only racket length but even experimented with different kind of paint. Now here is our answer. The rackets they use now weigh more than the average model. So their weight is more than the average model. So but the question is saying their weight is light in comparison, but we know their weight is more than the average model, so our answer will be false. Clear? It's quite easy to understand. Now moving on to the fifth question. Where Werner Fischer played with the spaghetti strung racket that he designed himself. So we know this is the locator word, so wherever the name of the player is given, there will be our answer. But what we have to find, he played with the spaghetti strung racket, okay, but the main information is he designed himself. So when the answer will be true, if this particular player has designed this particular racket himself. When it will be false, when the racket is not designed by himself but rather by someone else. When it will be not given, when we don't know what kind of racket he uses, or whether he designed it himself or someone else designed it. Okay, let's see where the information is given about this particular player. Werner. Okay, there is no information of Werner here. No information of Werner. Okay, here it is written. Werner Fischer. Racket. Okay, so now we will read carefully. Racket modification mainly date back to the 70s when the amateur German tennis player Werner Fischer started playing with the so-called spaghetti strung racket. So here our information. It created a string bed that generated so much topspin that it was quickly banned by International Tennis Federation. However, within a decade or two, racket modification became a regularity. Today it is in many ways an aspect of the game that is equal in significance to nutrition or training. But we don't know whether the design was created by this particular person or whether somebody else created it. So our answer to this particular question will be yes, not given. We cannot say false because we don't know who designed the racket, so we will say not given. Moving on to the sixth question. The weather can affect how professional tennis players adjust the strings on their racket. So weather, it will affect how professional players, what they do, okay, sorry about that, adjust the strings on their racket. So when our answer will be true, when because of weather. So maybe in the question it is not written weather exactly, maybe they will use example of weather like hot conditions, wet conditions, sunny. These kind of words may be used to describe weather, but because of those, if the players adjust their strings, maybe make their strings smaller or whatever the adjustment to the strings of the racket are made, then we will say true. But if because of weather there is no effect on the adjustment of string, players do not adjust their strings, we will say it is false. Or maybe they adjust their strings not because of weather but because of something else. And if there is no mention of weather, or if they are adjusting their strings but they do not have but there is no mention of why they are adjusting their strings, we will say our answer is not given. Let's see. Okay, we will start from here. Modification can be divided into two categories. So there is something about modification here. Okay, those string bed, so there is a mention of string bed modification, and those to the racket frame. The former is far more. So what former implies? String bed. So these are the word, the former. The latter, so latter is for racket and the former is for string bed. The former is far more common than the latter. The choice of the strings and the tension with which they are installed is something that nearly all professional players experiment with. So there is talk about professional players also. They will continually change it depending on various factors including the court surface, climatic condition, game styles. Some will even change it depending on how they feel. So here it is written. So they are changing the string bed, professional players, they are changing the string bed because of climatic conditions. Although there are court conditions like factors like court surface, game styles, or maybe how they are feeling, but climatic conditions like is one of them. So the weather can affect, yes it can, maybe there are other factors also, but it is also one of them. So our answer will be true. So when our answer would have been false if they have written the weather is the only factor that affect, but we know there are like other factors like court or how they are feeling. Okay, so but weather is one of them. It is not the only factor, but if it is written the weather is the only factor, then we would have said false. Okay, moving on to the last true and false, seventh. It was believed that the change Pete Sampras made to his rackets contributed to his strong serve. So this is the player that we need to find, Pete Sampras. So the change he made to his racket contributed to his strong serve. So when the answer will be true, because of the change that he made, it contributed to his strong serve. When the answer will be false, because of the change his serve was not like strong, or it was not because of racket, it was because of something else he changed. And when it will be not given, when there is no mention of the change to the racket, or there is no mention whether his serve was strong or not. Okay, let's see where Pete Sampras is written. Okay, Pete Sampras, here is no mention of Pete Sampras, here. So we do not need to read every word carefully until or unless we find our keyword name. Okay, there is no mention of Pete Sampras here either. Okay, no mention here, here it is written Pete Sampras. So here it is the mention of Pete Sampras, so we will read this paragraph carefully. However, many players go beyond this basic adjustment to the strings and make changes to the racket frame itself. For example, much of the serving power, so here it is written serving power, it just simply means strong serve, of US professional player Pete Sampras was attributed. So what was it referred to? Addition of 4 to 5 lead weights onto his racket. So he added 4 to 5 lead weight on his racket. So that's why they attributed this particular change of onto his racket to his serving power. So yes, he has made some change to his racket that contributed to his serving power, strong serve for that matter. So we will say the answer to this is true. Hope these are clear to you. Moving forward, questions 8 to 13. So we have to write one word only, so it is very important. So whenever you are doing fill-ups, always read instruction words, not only fill-ups, whether you're doing true, false, yes, no, not given, maybe MCQs or other types of questions, always read instruction words carefully. So we have to choose one word from the passage. So first we will read the question number 8. The tennis racket and how it has changed. So this is our heading, Mike and Bob Bryan. So we know in which paragraph it is written. Made changes to the types of, so this is, we have to find the changes to the types of something used on their racket frames. So we need to find what they have changed on their racket, like the types of frames, okay, on their racket frames. Okay, racket frames, these words are given, so we cannot say types of frame. It should be something on their racket frame they have changed, maybe the design or types of the design or something like that. Let's see what they have changed on their racket frames. Okay, Bob, here it is written Mike and Bob Bryan. So let's see. Take US professional tennis players Mike and Bob Bryan for example. We are very particular with our racket specifications. They say all our rackets are sent from our manufacturers to Tampa, Florida, where our frames go through a thorough customization process. They explain how they have adjusted not only racket length but even experimented with different kinds of paint. So they, in the question they have written types of, and in the paragraph they have written kinds of. So they have also changed kinds of paint. So here they have written types of. Okay, so our answer will be paint. Okay, moving on to the next question. Players were not allowed to use this spaghetti strung racket. So we know this particular keyword where it is written. So players were not allowed to use this spaghetti strung racket because of the amount of. So if you have read that particular information carefully, so we know what word should be here, but we will again not rely on our memory entirely. We will read the passage again to know the exact word that we need to find. Let's see. spaghetti strung racket. Here it is written spaghetti strung racket. So let's see why it was banned. It created string bed that generated so much topspin that it was quickly banned by the International Tennis Federation. So it created a lot of so much, meaning to say a lot of topspin. So in the question it was written the amount of so much it created. So what it created the amount of topspin. So that's why it was banned, not allowed, meaning to say banned in other words. Changes to rackets can be regarded as being important as players' diets or the dash they do. So we have to find the changes to the rackets, okay, is regarded as being as important as players' diet or something else. So we have to find what kind of information it is compared with. Okay, let's see. So we have found our answer topspin here. So we will obviously read after that. However, within a decade or two, racket modification became a regularity. Today it is in many ways as an aspect of the game that is equal in significance to nutrition or training. So these are our keywords. Equal in significance, meaning to say as important as nutrition refers to diet, and the other word should be training. So our answer to this particular question here should be training. Okay, moving forward to the next question. All rackets, so meaning to say not even one is paired, all rackets, we have to find this particular word. Used to have, that means they don't have now, but they used to have at one particular point of time. Natural strings made from the dash of animals. So we have to find strings that were made from something of animals, maybe skin of animals, teeth of animals, I don't know, maybe something related to animals. We have to find what is that. So obviously we will read after that. Modification can be divided in two categories: string bed and those racket frame. The former common latter. We have not read like anything about animals in this particular paragraph. At one time, all tennis rackets. So at one time, meaning to say it was done at one particular time, but maybe not now. And it is our other keyword, all rackets. Word strung with natural gut made from the outer layer of sheep or cow intestines. So they were made from like gut, or you can say intestines, one and the same thing. You can write either, I believe you can write either of the one word. So we will write gut. That's my gut feeling right now. So we will write gut for this, for this particular question. Moving on to the next one. Pete Sampras had metal dash put into the frame of his racket. So we know where this particular person's name is. This particular person had metal dash into the frames of his racket. So he has put something related to metal. Let's see. Pete Sampras. So Pete Sampras was attributed to the addition of 4 to 5 lead weights onto his racket. So if you are able to understand, you can pause the video and you can find the answer, and after that you can continue. So we know the answer should be weights. Lead is a sort of metal, so our answer should be metal weight. Okay, weights should be our answer. So be very careful. If you miss this particular S, your answer will be marked wrong in the exam. So if it is not, then it should not be marked as incorrect. Now to the last question. Gonçalo Oliveira changed the dash on his racket handle. So if I am pronouncing it incorrect, I am sorry in advance. So this particular person, Gonçalo Oliveira, changed something on his racket handles. So let's see what he changed on his racket handles. So we have read Pete Sampras here. and there is like here it is the name of this person, Gonçalo Oliveira. So the professional Portuguese player Gonçalo Oliveira replaced the original grips on his rackets with something thinner because they had previously felt uncomfortable to hold. So replaced just mean changed. So what he changed the grips. So our answer to this particular question should be, sorry about that, grips. Clear? So before going forward, let's check our answers. False, false, not given. False, not given, true, true. False, false, not given. False, not given, true, true. Paint, topspin, training, intestines or gut, weights, grip. Paint, topspin, training, intestines or gut, we have written gut, weights, grip. Oh, sorry about that, I have written here grips. Okay, grips. Okay, sorry, I misread it, sorry about that. So this is how you should solve your answers. If you do this the right way, in the beginning it may take some time for you to get accustomed to it, but if once you do, you will be easily able to solve your reading with correct answers every time, and it will not be like a nightmare for you. It will become like a piece of cake or walk in a park, and you will be able to score your desired band scores in reading. So there are lots of more videos like that on our channel, so do subscribe, like and follow, and I will see you in the next video. Till then, take care and goodbye.